And are you refreshed? Good. Now what?
Thank you. Is there any time it is useful to say what a person has in their vortex and what they will experience while here on planet Earth? I've heard you say you know us individually and why we're here, so I was just wondering that if you could tell me something, because I've been seeking and searching since I was little, and then when Jerry did croak, it threw stuff up, and then I stopped studying Abraham Hicks for a while.
Because?
I guess I thought if Jerry couldn't do it, I was judging him, like, oh,
if Jerry couldn't stop his eternal nature?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, the reason that we asked, we knew that's what you would say, and the reason that we asked for that important answer is because a lot of people have themselves in that precarious situation where you don't want death even though you know it is inevitable. And it's really helpful when you understand what it really is, that it's not endings but constant continuation of who you are. So what's in your vortex is defined by you. In other words, this life experience, when we're talking about your... Start again. In the same way that when we speak of the wholeness that is you, we're speaking about the wholeness that is you to you. And we are speaking it to you in as many ways as we can so that you can understand it from where you now are. It doesn't matter what we know when we're having a conversation with you. It only matters what we are able to help you know when we are having a conversation with you. In other words, this conversation is about your enlightenment. It's about your upliftment. It's about your perception. You could say that just in general, that the source within you is aware of so much more than is of interest to you in any point in time. Yes? In other words, you just can't perceive or conceive of or contemplate or talk about everything all at once. In other words, somebody's got to bring it down to something that's meaningful in some way. And your physical life experiences are all about that. In other words, you're masterful creators. You are understanding the inner workings of the entire universe. And you took all of that knowledge and you said, I'd like to focus it and apply it in an effective way here in my physical body. So when we talk about you, we're talking about the physical you and the non-physical you, blah, blah, blah. We know how that feels to you. And when we talk about your vortex, we're talking about all that you really are and all that you've really come to. But we are really talking about it in the confines is not exactly the right word because it's more confining than we want it to be. But we're trying to find a way of describing the perspective or the importance of the physical life experience that you are focused within. So when we speak of the vortex that you have created here, we're really talking about what this life has caused you to ask for about this life. In other words, we know that you all know that you're going to reemerge into non-physical. In other words, you accept that because you've been looking around and your logic lets you know no one's hanging around for an inordinate amount of time. It's a little unsettling when you take those historical tours and you realize that that building is thousands of years old and you realize you're not ever going to be thousands of years old. That building has housed and experienced a lot of you moving through, that you are passing through. So while at the same time that we want you to accept your passing through-iness, we also want you to accept the importance of your now focus. And so that's why we began talking about your vortex. We began talking about how you're sifting through life, and when someone's rude, you want people to be nicer. When you don't have enough money, you want more money. When you're living in a house that's unpleasant in some way, you want a house that's more pleasant. In other words, life is causing you to identify things that matter to you. What trips so many of you up is that you get all altruistic. You want to be universally focused. You want to think about who you are in terms of God force. Part of that's our fault. And when what you really want to know, in other words, the thing we love most hearing from you, and we began hearing it vibrationally and verbally through letters and emails from a lot of you, is, all right, Abraham, you've convinced us that we are vibrational, and we'll accept that screwy premise you've got of that vortex that's over there as Esther waves her arms around and points at invisible things, and you tell us that everything that we want is in there, and now we want to know, I'm speaking, you say, for all of my friends, how do we get that stuff out of the vortex and into the bank account? How can this become tangible? And so we've sort of come full circle, because you were tangible before we met you. In other words, you were focused upon the tangible before we met you. You were talking about, as Jerry and Esther were defining the subjects that you were most interested in, they fell in this category. Money was first, because it represented your avenue into so many things. Relationships was very important to you. In other words, parenting is very important to you. Politics is material to you in some ways. In other words, there are just a handful of things that you want to talk about, and well, you should. In other words, you're focused here, and this is the way you're interplaying with one another. These things must be important to you. And so we want you to, in specific and direct response to what you are asking here, we want you to understand that what this life, this personality, this you, what this life causes you to desire, this life can yield to you. And that really is what we are all about here, because you don't have to know that you're non-physical in order to be non-physical again. It's going to happen whether you know it or not. You don't have to know about the laws of the universe in order for the laws of the universe to do their thing all around you. You don't have to know that you're an eternal being in order to be one. You don't have to know that you are worthy in order to be worthy. You don't have to know the Source loves you in order to be loved by Source. In other words, nothing goes wrong if you don't know any of those things. But we want to play with you because we want you to deliberately identify the things that do matter to you. And we want you to deliberately know the path to get to those things, because things just happening to you is not the satisfying experience that you intended for yourself. That's that larger vortex. You intended to know how this works and to do it on purpose. In other words, we're flowing through you and with you, whether you know that we are or not. But it is so satisfying to us when you know it too. When those emotions that feel good ripple through your body, that's the emotion that we're feeling. And that's our awareness of you feeling it too. That's what resonance is, you see. There is no true, delicious experience without that resonance. And so until the whole of you, the whole of us all comes together, there is truly no perfect creation or relationship or even experience. So what's in your vortex, what really matters relative to that vortex, is what you've put there. It's the houses you've put there. It's the lovers you've put there. It's the material things that you've put there. It's the relationships you've put there. But it's also the how you want to be in the world that you've put there. It's the how you want to feel. It's the how you perceive the world to be. It's all of the things that make up how you feel. That's what's in there, you see. There are no limits to what you can accomplish. You really are supposed to just move from lovely experience to lovely experience. We like it so much when you plan and make your way to an experience like this. We know that you have been deliberate about it and decisive about it, and that things have come together for you in order for you to be here. But we don't want this to be a trip of a lifetime. We want this to be one of the many trips of this lifetime. We don't want this to be something that stands out in its unusualness. We want this to be how it just is for you. When Esther says, someone said the other day, because she was in the midst of accomplishing the creating of something really amazing by most standards and magnificent by her standards, a really pleasing creation. And someone said to her, it doesn't even seem possible that this could happen this fast or this big. And Esther said, it's just how I roll. And she liked knowing that. She liked knowing the logicalness of it, the next logical steppiness of it, the naturalness of it. In other words, this is what we wish for you. We want you to know how big your life is, and we want you to experience it in its bigness. But by bigness, we mean never-ended funness. We mean never-ended pleasing of you. We want you to go from something that's interesting to something that's fun, to something that's fascinating, to something that's adventurous, to something that's exciting. Just pleasurable in all the ways that you want pleasurable to be. That's what's in your vortex. Nowhere is there poverty. Nowhere is there pain. Nowhere in this vortex that the source within you has helped you to create, nowhere is you proving worthiness. There are no lessons to be learned in your vortex. There are no things that you ought to do or that you got to do or that you should do. In other words, there's just the fulfillment of who you are. And yes, you had a really good head start when you came into this physical body. Yes, for sure. There were intentions that you held from that non-physical, non-resistant point of view that are in your vortex. There was a momentum of well-being that was there in your vortex. But it's the stuff you've put there since you got here that is the meat of this life experience. And it's this stuff that we revel so much in you allowing you to get. You see what we're getting at? And it's not just stuff that you put there. Oh, it's really fun to come into this work and to begin to accept the fullness of who you are and to begin to realize the manifestations of things that you've been asking for a while. But we really like it most when you begin to get the hang of this and you begin to accept that you're putting new stuff in. You're putting new stuff in all the time. Oh yeah, didn't know I even wanted that. Yeah, I want that too. Yeah, I want that too. Yeah, I want that too. We want your vortex to be brimming with all kinds of more wonderful things that you're carving out of this time-space reality. You are not limited beings, and when you limit yourself, you deprive yourself of being who you really are. You're rambunctious. You're not greedy because greed implies that there is shortage. You are knowing that there is no shortage. You are knowing that you are unlimited. And so the more that you're asking for and the more that you're allowing, then the more the momentum of your life experience. And isn't it the momentum? Doesn't momentum ring true to you? Can't you feel? Isn't momentum what you're reaching for? Wouldn't you really rather run than crawl? Don't you like the feeling of the wind in your ears? Don't you like that? Don't you want to put your head out the window like your dog does? Don't you want to be more alive? Don't you want to feel all of that, you see?